Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to episode 12 of In the Red Corner. Joining me as always, fresh from the hairdressers, Mr. Grant Winstanley, looking sharp, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. 3 long months. Finally a bit of normality coming back.
Yeah, they're looking good. All right, well, we'll crack straight into it because we've got a busy kind of agenda this week. Starting off, it's Grand Final weekend, two sports, the AFL and Rugby League. We're not going to get onto Rugby League because we know even less about that than we did about the Lomachenko fight last weekend. But the AFL Grand Final, we've been tracking this over the last couple of weeks. So we're finally down to the final tomorrow night. Richmond, Geelong, and I'm giving up making predictions now because everything I've said over the last couple of weeks has not come to fruition. So I'll handball it to you. How do you see this game going?
Tight game. I think it's going to be a really tight game. Obviously, third and fourth in the ladder. Richmond and Geelong obviously finished the season, and all the way through, I said Geelong will win the flag. That has been my prediction from day dot. So obviously, I've got to back them. But the interesting thing is when I say it'll be a tight game, I think it'll be a very low scoring, nervy tight game as well. But I think a lot of it has to do with the weather, because the weather conditions. I mean, to be honest, me and Trav were speaking about it the other day. I would probably postpone it a week because the weather tomorrow in Brisbane, believe it or not, is something like 28 degrees. It's thunderstorms throughout the day for the whole of the game, but it's also 70% humidity. So it'll be the stickiest, wettest, awful game. And they always say, footy fans always say Richmond play very good in the wet, as opposed to Geelong. So I kind of lean to sort of Richmond there, but I've got to back Geelong. And more importantly, when you're the best player on the ground in the grand final, you win the Norm Smith medal. Now, I have backed Gary Ablett to win the Norm Smith at 21-1. Bit of a fairy tale. Most likely his last game of footy, can win the flag on his last appearance. Obviously will want to have a good game and finish out on top. And hopefully he wins the Norm Smith. And, and in my opinion, as I said to yourself, Matt, if he's close on that voting, they may give it him because that story is written. So if they give it to him, mate, I'm getting the beers in, no doubt about it.
I've got my fingers crossed for that one then. Yeah. I tend to agree as well. I think I watched Richmond's game last week, and especially in that last quarter, that it was that amazing finals momentum that Richmond have been able to conjure, the last couple of years. If they play like that, I think that they're very, very hard to beat. But those weather conditions, it changes everything.
Yeah.
I've been back in the fairy tale each week since Saints went out. I jumped on Brisbane. I was like, I'd love to see them win it at the Gabba. But now I think with Gary Ablett's last game, I think, he's a legend of the game, and I'd like to see him and get a win in his final game. So I'll be rooting for them and obviously for yourself.
Yeah.
Smith fellow prediction and get some beers in.
Maybe a slab of mountain goats or something. Who knows? But and obviously moving swiftly on from the AFL, obviously we'll get straight into some, the Premier League action of kind of, the past week. And Matt, I've got to come to you first, mate, because I don't think there's anywhere to begin more than the Merseyside Derby, because I think there may have been a couple of talking points. I'm not too sure though.
Yeah, there was. God, yeah, where do you even begin? I think the real shame is that those talking points, the VAR, the Pickford's challenge, the offside, it overshadows what was a really competitive derby game, and it's the first one, especially the first competitive derby we've had at Goodison for a long time. Two really good sides there, and Everton have improved massively this year, and they're willing to come and compete with everyone, and notwithstanding Liverpool. But it's hard to talk about that game without talking about it in the context of the some mad decisions and some mad rules that we're not quite I've not got my head around really. Initially you have the terrible challenge that Pickford made on Van Dijk, and then kind of the rules that went around that and how it wasn't kind of penalised. It wasn't pulled back for the challenge. And it's hard to get your head around, isn't it? And I don't I don't want to get too far into a VAR debate because we'll be here all day, but I do think that it's not a VAR problem. It's an officials problem, and it's the people that are the referees that are monitoring the VAR, who are monitoring this video system. If they don't know the rules, or they can't interpret the rules, or they don't, they don't follow through with it, the procedure of how it's supposed to work, and it's just a waste of time. You might as well just have the ref on the pitch, and sometimes he'll get it right, sometimes he'll get it wrong, and it swings and roundabouts. It'll work out like that.
Yeah.
The challenge was horrendous. I'm sure it's not intentional, but he's made a dangerous tackle there.
Yeah.
And whether or not Van Dijk's offside, for me, he should be pulled back, and you have to address that challenge. I think you made a good analogy. We watched it together, and you were kind of saying, if someone had, just because he's offside, if Van Dijk had got up and lamped Pickford, it doesn't just not count because it was offside. The play carries on, doesn't it?
You can be sent off after the whistle. Through dissent, or through after a game's over, you can be sent off.
Yeah. So I don't understand what happened there. And then obviously, as the game played out, it was a fantastic game, and I was really impressed with how Liverpool played as well. Even with Van Dijk going off, it took us half an hour or so, 15, 20 minutes to figure ourselves out at the back.
Yeah.
Obviously losing Alisson, so you've got Adrian in there, who doesn't have the same confidence with the back four. So we had to kind of readjust there, but we got through it, and we conceded. But I think Calvert-Lewin's going to cause problems for every defense this year. It's not just a Liverpool thing.
Yeah.
But I thought Thiago, Henderson were just imperious in that midfield. Mane was causing all sorts of problems. We always look dangerous, and I thought we deserved the win, and that's what what really kind of stung at the end when that goal, Henderson's goal at the end was disallowed for offside. It's again, we watched it together, and no matter what's happening, and they go to the video ref and he's drawing his lines on the screen, and even with these lines, I'm still looking at it thinking, I still don't see how he's offside. Yeah. I don't understand it. So it was frustrating. But I mean, I'm coming up from a very biased perspective. What did you think as well?
Yeah, no, and as a Man United fan, looking at that goal at the end, I can admit that was not offside. I look at the picture time and time again, and there is no way that is offside, in my opinion. And it was interesting what Jamie Carragher said, to go back when he was talking about the referee. And Jamie Carragher this week said, do you have the most experienced referees and the best referees in Stockley Park behind the camera if they're the ones making the decision? But to go back to Pickford, yes, don't get me wrong, it was a red card all day. It was a red card. But I think it's the fact that it's something, because it came unpunished, where it became kind of a more serious thing. Because for me, Pickford is a keeper that's low on confidence, and he's been poor for the last 18 months. It's in a derby game. I think the ball's dropped. He's seen Van Dijk coming in at the far post. He's gone to make himself big. He's low on confidence. It's a big occasion. And unfortunately, obviously, the follow through as he's kind of jumped in the air has caught Van Dijk. And I've been hearing a lot of, and obviously, it's unfortunate because he has injured Van Dijk. And I have been hearing a lot of, yes, don't get me wrong, it's a bad tackle. But I've heard a lot of pundits saying, it's an absolute it's the worst thing that they've ever seen type of thing. And it's kind of, I have seen worse challenges than that, like career-ending injuries, Roy Keane and Haaland and those types with intent there as well. So there has been more serious challenges, but I think it was the fact that it became unpunished. And I've heard some pundits say, Pickford should be out as long as Van Dijk and all that rubbish. And I think it's sport. These things happen in sport. Sometimes it goes against you. Sometimes, and Carragher said he broke his leg and then he nearly broke Nani's leg as well, type of thing. That's what he was saying this week. And Van Dijk, unfortunately, it really affects you guys. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about injuries, and Liverpool have been very lucky at the start of the season to not have those big injuries. So now the window is 7 weeks away. Do you have to dip into the market to have a chance for the title, or where are we at from a defensive point of view?
I don't think so. I think it leads kind of nicely onto this, to the Ajax game midweek, because he showed there that Fabinho can easily dip into that position as well at centre back. Yeah. You've got Matip there. The issue with Matip is that we know that he doesn't really string long strings of games together without getting injured. He is a bit injury prone. But we've also got a couple of youngsters that Reece Williams is coming through. I think it's Reece Williams. I don't think he'll dip into the market. I think that we'll make do as we go. And Van Dijk's he's irreplaceable. He's arguably he's the best defender in the world. But what it does is when you've got someone like Van Dijk in your defense, it almost exposes the other central defender, i.e. Gomez, more than often, because Gomez becomes the target then. You take Van Dijk out of there and it's a bit more of an even playing field. So they might work better as a unit together or equally as well as a unit together, whether it be with Fabinho, whether it be with Matip, because there won't be that kind of one target they're going to go to. So you might see Gomez be able to lift his game. And I think we just have to adapt the way we play. That the line, especially with the keeper, our line might have to be, drop 5 or 10 yards. We might not be able to play the same kind of extremely high line that we have been playing. And we've just got to adapt to it the same way we've had to adapt to not having Alisson there. You can't play the same way with Adrian in net. And it's not a slight on Adrian. He's just the difference is he's not Alisson. And you have to accept that he's our number 2 goalkeeper. And number 2 goalkeepers are going to have a certain level. They're not going to be that world-class keeper. They're not going to be able to do the same things with him in net, whether it be a confidence thing, whether it just be the way that we play. We just have to adapt to that. But I don't see it being a big problem for us.
Right.
The caveat to that is if another one of them goes down, you start to have problems then. So it's going to be about keeping those lads fit, rotating them in and out as well. I don't think you're going to want to play Matip every week, but we're lucky there that we can drop Fabinho back in there for probably not the bigger games. I think when you start playing United, when you start playing City, you want Fabinho in that number 6 role. But, this weekend when we play Sheffield United, you might well see Fabinho drop back into the defence and he'll do a job there. We saw it this week. It kind of moves us on to Ajax midweek. I know it was a good game. It's important for us to get those away wins in the Champions League because we haven't been great at doing it over the last couple of years. Not that it's hindered us, we've always got out of the group. We've always done pretty well. But I think with the onslaught of games and fixtures we've got coming up, for me, you want to get this Champions League group done and dusted as soon as you can. And that means winning these away games early on. And, if it's a 1-0 where I think what we did is we got that 1-0 lead and we shut up shop really. We thought we could hold that and we did. And the beauty of it was as well that Klopp was confident enough to make those big changes, early on. He got Curtis Jones off at half time, put Henderson on. He changed the front 3 on about 60 minutes. Yeah. Brought Jota on, brought Minamino on, Shaqiri. We haven't seen Shaqiri in months, but we know that he can do a job in this team. And I think it almost sounds a bit of a warning. I'm sure Sheffield United were disappointed when they saw the front 3 coming off. Yeah. Because you're kind of hoping that they're going to run themselves ragged midweek in the Champions League. Yeah. And then we either don't see them against Sheffield United this weekend or they're a bit jaded. Whereas I think now they've come off, they've had an extra half an hour rest and they'll be ready to go again.
You get 5 subs this year in the Champions League, so you may as well use them.
Well, and that's exactly what Klopp's done. He's utilised it really well and able to, we can rotate players there. And I think it was a bit of gamesmanship from him just to show the rest of the Premier League and that we might have lost Van Dijk there, but we've got a deep squad, and I don't think he's worried either.
We can win a game without our front 3 as well in the last 30 minutes.
And Jota looks incredible. He's further ahead than I think people thought he would be at this point. Yeah. He's an able replacement for any of that front 3 really. Yeah. And I think you're also going to see Minamino. The more time he gets games now, the more Klopp's confident. I think that he can step in for Firmino, when need be, especially when Firmino's confidence is a bit low. So great result. And we kick on to Sheffield United this weekend, which should, it should be a relatively easy game for Liverpool. Sheffield United haven't started well at all. I think they've only picked up 1 point, and that was...
They're not scoring a lot. They're really not scoring.
Not scoring. They brought in Brewster from Liverpool. He's not done anything yet, and I'm sure he'll be fired up for this. He'll have something to prove. But I don't think we need to be too worried about Sheffield United. Which, I mean, it's a surprise, isn't it? Because they did so well last year. Yeah. They have had a few injuries at the start of the season, so I think that's just let them down a bit. But once your head goes down and once you start to, they've picked up a couple of 4 defeats on the run there, and it's hard to claw that back, isn't it? So I think it should be business as usual for Liverpool. We might use it as a chance to make some changes across that front 3. There is the flexibility there. I wonder if one of them might drop out. You might see Jota start. It'll be interesting. It's hard to pick a lineup now. I don't know what he'll do. but I think we'll be pretty confident that we can rest and rotate and still get a good result here. What do you think about that? Am I being a bit too overconfident there?
No, definitely. I mean, the bookies have Sheffield United to win 11-1 or something like that to beat Liverpool. So that tells you all that. But no, I think the way Sheffield they really struggled last week against Fulham. They made a meal of that game, and Fulham aren't good either. So I'm comfortable. I would say I'd expect a comfortable win, 2-3, maybe 3-4-0 potentially.
Yeah. It's one of those. If we get an early goal,
then floodgates could open.
Well, they could, or we could put a few away and then shut up shop, and again rest and rotate. It really depends what Klopp wants to do. But I think he'll want to set a marker. I think we dropped that point against Everton there, but I think we got the point against Everton there, but I think come the end of the season we might look at that and think that's a good point. I don't think anyone's got under this illusion now that there's going to be a massive gap and we're going to run away with it like we did last year.
Yeah.
There'll be mad results, won't there, throughout the season, but I think Klopp will want to put a run of results together now, get us to the top of the table or thereabouts, and really kick on through this busy kind of fixture period. I get moving on to Liverpool. It's interesting, isn't it, what's going on with United, because we sat here this time last week and we were a bit doom and gloom. I think you were a bit doom and gloom. I was a bit, I guess, gloating a little bit, but also, concerned for what was going on at United. That we outlined they had about 7 games there, which is a really tough run. You're 2 games into that 7-game run, and you've won them both. Look really good. What's different? What's turned around in this last week?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, like you say, a couple of good wins we've picked up. Obviously, first with Newcastle. I was screaming out for some changes, which he did so. Made a couple of changes, and it's a side that was obviously we're very low on confidence. We conceded a freak on goal in the first couple of minutes, and you know what? Harry Maguire, of all people, got the equaliser, and I'd admit I was a little bit emotional for him when he scored. I was because I thought, what a way to stand up to critics, to stand up to the media, to stand up, and to your teammates as well, and say, no, I'm back, don't worry, type of thing. So we dominated the second half. The build up for a lot of the goals was pleasing as well. Rashford had his best performance probably since the restart of last season, and Juan Mata was unreal in that game as well. A bit of gas left in the tank. And then we move on to Paris Saint-Germain away, which of that 7 run and what we have so far this season, on paper, Paris Saint-Germain away is probably your toughest test, you would say. And it just goes to show that Ollie must have tuned in to our podcast last week, because I was begging him to play the 5-3-2 with the players that we have. And we did. He changed the system. Telles came in, made his debut, looked some really nice touches. His delivery, his left-footed delivery is excellent. Very Andy Robertson-like in terms of those swinging crosses, getting involved in set pieces as well, taking corners. So I was impressed with what he did. And, United fans and myself all along through the podcast, through Twitter, through everything, we've been I've been screaming for a centre-back. We need to buy a centre-back. And we've had him all along. We've had him all along in the squad, and it was Axel Tuanzebe. Axel Tuanzebe is a young player, a leader that came through the under-23, through the reserves, captain of the under-23s. Last year, he kicked on his career with Aston Villa a couple of years ago. Aston Villa fans love him. Helped them to sort of, where they are today, really, in terms of promotion, etc. And last year was supposed to be his breakout year. He got injured for most of the season. Similar to Eric Bailly, he struggles with a lot of injuries. His last appearance was December 2019 against Colchester in the Cup. And sure enough, he's fit. He gets the nod from Solskjaer, and it's your first game back. Don't worry, mate. Away at Paris is your first game against Paris Saint-Germain. Wan-Bissaka was great. Fred and McTominay was great as well. But the big thing for me, Matt, is it's no coincidence that our best 2 performances has come when Paul Pogba hasn't started the game.
Yeah.
There's a bit more discipline, a bit more grit, a bit more intensity into that midfield. And I honestly believe now he is surplus to requirements. I really do. Because we've got Bruno, we've got Donny, we've got Matic, we've got McTominay, we've got Fred. The only job that Pogba can do in that system it's Bruno's role, and Bruno has been, showing what he's all about. And I think it's the time now. We've extended his contract by a year. Maybe it was a shop. He came on against Paris Saint-Germain. Maybe it was a shop window sub because they're probably his only employer. Take French international World Cup winner to the capital, maybe. So I think we don't need Pogba. Sort of looking towards the Chelsea game, we don't have to change much. Keep that 5-3-2. It worked. Chelsea are very similar to Paris. They've got a lot of that attacking intent. They're a very similar side. I'd expect Maguire, if he's fit, to come back in for Shaw, because Shaw played centre-back. They played a 3 centre-back. So I'd say Maguire comes in. And potentially I'd like to see maybe Van der Beek get a start over Fred. Give him a go now. He came on and looked good, set up a really good goal. And then forward line, we'll have to change Martial because he's still suspended. So then maybe Cavani gets a start. Maybe if he's fit, which would be nice. I want to see him go. He looks in good nick. I'm keen to see how he goes with his big reputation, goal scorer. And if not, then it'll be Greenwood. Greenwood is kind of fallen out of line in the last couple of weeks. He's not been injured. It's been disciplinary issues.
Right.
And Ollie's had to pull him in line. I think there's a couple of rumours circling. He's been going out, partying or drinking or whatever, so that doesn't sit well. So he's missed from the last 2 squads due to behaviour as opposed to injuries. So he may get the nod against Chelsea because he's a top player, of course, but not too sure. He might go with Cavani, with that experience. So I think it'll be probably a very similar game. 2-1 to Man United. I'm going to predict. Try and catch him out on the counter.
Do you think? Well, it's interesting to say that about the counter attack. Do you think Ollie will try and get at Chelsea? We know that they're good going forward, but they're very susceptible at the back.
Yeah,
and that counter attacking style. Do you think he'll go there with the intent of we can get at these?
Yeah, I think so. But I'd say the perfect timing for Chelsea, unfortunately for me, is the goal in midweek. The new goalkeeper, Mendy, played. So I would fancy myself a lot if Kepa was in the net. No disrespect. But Mendy's back. But also Thiago Silva came back for Chelsea midweek. Yep. So them two are massive defensive assets for them. They've both kept a clean sheet. I think they've only played 2 games together or something like that where they've kept a clean sheet. So that shows you that Silva's the leader in front and they haven't got Kepa in net. So
it'll make a difference, you're right.
Yeah. So that's massive for them. But that being said, with the pace of Rashford and maybe a Greenwood or Cavani's kind of the unknown in a way. He's not the unknown, but it may be his first game in the Premier League. Yeah. Them two Thiago and Cavani used to play against each other at Paris Saint-Germain. They kind of know each other inside out, I would say. Yeah. So I think it'd be a great game. But yes, to answer your question, we can get at him, and I think we will.
Brilliant. Well, from one interesting game to another, I think just quickly mentioning, anything else that takes your fancy over the weekend. For me, the interesting one was Villa Leeds. With it, I think Villa only need a point to go top. Which is a sentence I've never thought I'd be saying this season. But I think again, Villa, they've just looked incredible. The addition of Ross Barkley there, just complementing Grealish, however you want to say it. Yeah. It's fantastic. And they when they started off the season quite well, it was still under that kind of impression. Oh yeah, they started well, but they'll come unstuck at some point, or it'll kind of fizzle out. But they seem to be maintaining this level of this quality. Yeah, that I just didn't expect from them. And the caveat to that is, Leeds are still that kind of unknown and unorthodox in how they approach the games. It's going to be a great one. I don't know how this one's going to go. You think just off sheer quality that Villa should have enough, but you never know with Leeds. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah. You're going to get goals to them. You're going to get that attacking intent. So a bit of a test, I think, for Villa to see how they go against that kind of style of football. Yeah. How do you think that game will play out?
So I'm going to be quite critical of Leeds. So it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a very good game. But this is the time now, Leeds. It's all well and good having attacking intent. Yeah. But you've got to start winning games and you need to pick up points because the warning signs this week was against Wolves. The goal was coming. There was a couple of scares and Leeds just carried on playing that Leeds way, which is, it's good. It's easy on the eye. But if you don't win games, you're gonna not pick up any points, and you're gonna get relegated. And the number one aspect is get to that 40 points or more if it's needed, regardless of if you're winning games 1-0 or winning every single game 5-0. You need to pick up points, and you need to figure out how to win games. And Leeds have to pick up a point at least.
You're exactly right. There's I think Norwich did it last year, didn't they? They came and they played great football, and they stuck to the kind of they stuck to the plan, and they didn't adjust to life in the Premier League. And unfortunately, you don't get points for flair, do you? And sometimes you do just have to close out a game, know how to grind one out, win a 1-0, nick a draw somewhere. They haven't done that yet, and Bielsa's obviously very much sticking to his the way he wants to play and the way that they have been playing. But you're exactly right that they do need points is the most important thing. And teams like Villa, who it might be a bit different now, but at the start of the season you would have thought would have been kind of that bottom end of the table. They're the type of teams that they need to be picking up these points against. So
because Villa will kind of not be scared in a sense the way it's happening, because they're full of confidence at the moment, and they're like, well, if you want to go similar to a fight, if you want to go punch for punch, well, all right, we'll play that game because we'll get the goal.
You're right. Anything else that jumped out to you this weekend?
Yeah, the big one for me really, I think is quite interesting. I think West Ham and Man City will be a very interesting game.
Right.
I think that's the early game on Saturday for us at like 10:30, I think.
Okay.
Now, the reason why is West Ham have been playing really well, which is a very surprise, I would say. Again, full of confidence. City, they've been doing okay to good, I would say, if I was rating them. But I feel as though City still haven't hit that Man City stride, and that where they're all firing on all cylinders, whether it was De Bruyne had missed the last game or they obviously need him to come back. But I think that'll be an interesting game. And as I say, they need him back, of course, because he makes them tick. But interestingly on this fixture, mate, is the bookies are saying West Ham to win is 7-1,
right,
but a draw is 5-1. I'm liking that draw at 5-1. I really like that draw at 5-1. It's great odds. So, my betting tip of the week, it's kind of, I try and find one every week, really. But my betting tip of the week is, West Ham draw 5-1. Anything else that jumps out at you, mate? Or
I think the only other one, the Arsenal-Leicester game, is an interesting one. They're both coming off narrow defeats last week, and they'll both want to stay in touch with that, the top of the table, that top four. You don't want to start slipping away too soon. The Leicester especially had great momentum over the kind of the start of the season, and I think they'll want to pick that up again. But the Arsenal game, it's a tough one because Arteta's got them playing some really good football. And I think they'll only get better as well as the season goes on. So I think if you're going to be taking points off Arsenal, now's the time to do it. We know how dangerous Leicester are going forward. So I think there'll be a few goals in this game. And I'm interested to see how that one goes. I wouldn't mind a draw on this one as well if you're picking a couple of draws this weekend.
Score a draw, I reckon.
For these guys, on
So,
that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe a West Ham draw and an Arsenal Leicester draw might be quite nice odds, sir.
There you go. Those are in the red corner. Footy tip this week.
That's it. But as anything with betting, we only want to see the winning slips. No one ever sees the losing slips. So we only want to see the winners if we win your money, So obviously, moving on, I'd say the big analysis this week that we want to get involved with is obviously the UFC. Now, we've managed to get a very special guest this week, to break down UFC 254, a guest that we know very well, me in particular, probably from the age of maybe 5 years of age, lived with us both here in Melbourne, been around the world, now resides in Tucson, Arizona, and which is very much a hotbed of MMA talent, which we will get into shortly. And, he's here joining us. He's the guy who can break down UFC fights. He's the one that, because let's be honest, Matt, we don't know the proper terminology, do we, of this MMA stuff. So we need our resident purple belt. He's joining us here and now. True to Tyler Hill fashion, he's our best friend and yours, Mr. Adam Lane. Welcome.
What's up, fellas? How's it going? Good to see you.
You too,
Yeah,
mate. Thanks for joining me.
good to see you. Yeah, not bad,
Grant
mate.
with the fresh trim.
It's not bad, that is it, mate? I've been wearing a hat like
looking
you for
good,
the past 3 months, so
I know, I'm hiding here. I'm hiding. It's proper going under here.
I haven't got this problem.
Exactly. I know. But yeah, thanks for joining us, mate. As I say, here to break down sort of the UFC and talk about the fights. And Matt, as always, we kick off with the opening question. So ask away.
Well, I thought we'd tailor one to Adam specifically this week.
Yeah.
Looking at this card, there's a few fighters on the card from Arizona and some from Tucson in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Casey Kenny, Lauren Murphy, Jared Cannonier, all Arizona.
Yeah.
What is it about Arizona and Tucson in particular that you think makes it such a hotbed for this talent?
Man, that's a good question. The first time I came to Tucson, I got here and it was shortly after starting jiu-jitsu back in the UK at Saul Rogers MMA Academy. And I got here and I was trying to find a place to go. And I noticed as soon as I did a quick Google, there was a Gracie's. There was a 10th Planet. These two big names straight away. And then on top of that, you got Rise Combat Sports. You got a UFC gym. There was all of these gyms in a place like Tucson, which is somewhat of a small town.
Right.
And then the second I walked in that Gracie's gym and started rolling, it was like, there was a different level. I'm not sure what it is, but the talent here is crazy. From the second I got here, it was noticeable. There's just a lot of tough fellas here. They I don't know, they can just grind it out. It's just part of like the culture. And I also think being relatively close to Central South America, a lot of those black belts from Brazil, from South America, kind of when they made their way to the US, Arizona was one of those states that they kind of got to first. Mackenzie Dern's father, for example, he's up in Phoenix and one of the first to like kind of come into the US scene, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. I think there's 3 Arizona fighters on this card, and then in the UFC in total, you've got Sean O'Malley too. You've got I'm forgetting off the top of my head. There's probably like 6-7 top UFC fighters right now that are coming out of Arizona, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. And even like of all time, I would say your Dan Hendersons, your Ryan Baders. These are absolute
Benson
killers.
Henderson.
Benson Henderson. Yeah, so there's a lot of killers over the time that Arizona seems to churn them out. But one sort of question I have for you as well is obviously you've done a lot of training and coached former UFC fighter Anthony Burchak, obviously current in Legacy Fighting Alliance, and I kind of want to know what is sort of he like to train with, and or is that mentor, and so what that dynamic is about, and even from your particular gym in Tucson, or is there anyone who we should be looking out for who you think is a straight up killer, or talk to us about everyday camp life.
It's crazy, man. Like the level of intensity in the gym that I train out, which is 10th Planet Tucson under Anthony Burchak, is something else. Like every time you go in those doors, you got to be willing to, like, sometimes it's just like, oh fuck, like you go in and you got to be willing to just go to war. Like I went on Tuesday randomly. That one day they decided instead of an 1.5-hour class, it was actually going to be a 2.5-hour class, and we was going to do an hour of class and then we was going to roll for an hour. And I just was not prepared for it, but you've just got to be ready. It's that mentality. There's so many killers in there, man. And one to look out for, obviously there's Casey Kenny. We'll know him out of my gym in particular. Burchak, man, he's been close to getting that call back into the UFC multiple times. His agent has had him on standby for Fight Island like 4 different times in case of injuries. Nothing ever came to fruition. He cut back-to-back weekends, cut to like 140 and never got the call. Somewhat frustrating, but that's kind of what it takes to get into the big time.
He's won his last 2. He's won his last 2, right?
Won his last 2, actually 3, I think. One in LFA, won 2 in Combate Americas. All first round finishes still. Like really, like quickly dismantling them. A lot of like last one. I actually went to the last one. It was like a live event before the whole world went kind of crazy, and you couldn't do that. It was a live event in Tucson, and it was unreal. Like the whole gym went, great atmosphere. Henry Cejudo was there. Dominic Cruz was there because they're both out of Arizona.
Yeah, of course.
They was having some words at the front, fighting with each other a little bit.
Yeah.
It was fun. But yeah, we also got, there's a guy called Dion Clash that he's a scary man.
Right.
He's out of 10th Planet Tucson, and he's definitely someone to watch out for. He's young too. I think he's like 25, 26.
What weight is he?
Yeah, he's someone to look out for sure. What weight?
Yeah. Or would he float in between a couple or any other?
He would be probably like light heavyweight.
Right.
Light heavyweight. Yeah. He's big dude.
Although Khabib, you're on notice, mate.
I know. He's the one guy in the gym where you see him up against the wall and you're like looking for who to roll with, and you're like, and you just kind of avoid him because it's terrifying.
Get an injury, take an injury or something. I've got to be somewhere, mate. I've got to go.
I feel like Dion for a UFC fighter as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the perfect Dion Smash Clash.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Right. Wow. Well, I guess we'll kick on to the card as well. Obviously, UFC 254 this weekend. It's a final event on Fight Island after a 5-week stint on Fight Island. It's a great card. Obviously, a few people dropped off the original bill, but I think it's still a really strong card, top to bottom. You could spend forever going through each one, but I guess we've picked out a few that we think are interesting. And yeah, if there's anything else Adam wants to pitch in as well, that'd be great. For me, the first kind of one I was interested in on the prelims was, as we mentioned before, Casey Kenny and Nathaniel Wood. We saw Casey Kenny a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago.
About 3 weeks ago. Right?
Yeah, he fought Atalang Haley, who's a Mongolian kind of wrestler. Fought him over 3 rounds. He went to a decision, but my God, it was brutal. He absolutely destroyed him with leg kicks.
It was awful.
Yeah, there's no other word to describe it.
I know.
It was awful.
But he obviously got the decision there, and he's one of those fighters. He jumped over the octagon, straight up to Dana White, saying, "Get me back in there." Yeah. As we know, the UFC absolutely love people who do that. He's just desperate to fight. He took no damage in the fight. UFC got him back in there. It's a late notice fight with Nathaniel Wood, so they've done it at a catch weight. I believe it's 140. For Wood, it's a bit of a, it's his chance to get himself back up in the rankings, I think, and getting the good graces by taking a last minute fight. He's obviously was on a bit of a tear. He lost to Dodson, I believe.
He did.
Did he get stopped in that fight? I think he did.
Yeah.
So I'll come to you, Grant, first. How do you see that fight playing out? Do you think that this Casey Kenny is now on a bit of a roll and he's super dangerous, or do you think Nathaniel Wood can kind of withstand that damage?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's a fantastic matchup because I know it's a bit of a late notice, but the interesting thing is obviously Nathaniel Wood, English fighter, obviously from London. He's won 4 out of his last 5 UFC fights, Wood, and 3 of them have come by submission, which is quite interesting. And obviously he last fought on the original first Fight Island. So again, he's probably turned it around in maybe 3 months, something like that. And like you say, Casey Kenny fighting out of, Adam's gym there as well. He's also won 4 of his last 5. So it's kind of both on a tear, both hungry, both looking to have all eyes on them. And I think it'll be a really fantastic fight. And I will lean towards Kenny on this one via decision. If it's anything like we saw a couple of weeks ago with that pressure, like you say, the leg kicks, he seemed really up for it. So I'll lean towards Kenny. How do you see it? Adam, I'll come to you. Anything that you can tell us about? Don't give away his game plan, but anything we should look out for, or he won't appreciate that.
Yeah, so. I have to agree with you. I've never had the pleasure of rolling or sparring with Casey.
Right.
Actually, I don't know if it would be a pleasure. It might be pretty miserable. But
yeah,
I've spoke to a lot of people that have, and they talk so highly of him.
Right.
He trains at Rise Combat Sports here in Tucson, but also now he's started to hit the big time a little more. He's spending a lot of time up at MMA Lab as well with Cannonier and Sean O'Malley, Benson Henderson, those guys. So he's not down here as much, but everyone that knows of him down here and talks of him just seems to think he's going to easily walk through this. So I got to go with the guys that know the most, So gonna go with them. I'm gonna think that he's just gonna utilize those leg kicks. That left hand is pretty strong too. And yeah, I just don't think, as much as I like Nathaniel Wood, I think he's a great fighter. From what I'm hearing and what I've seen, I just don't think he quite has enough to take it to Kenny, especially after that last performance.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. And then moving up the prelims, the headliner, I think is a really interesting fight. Tai Tuivasa, Stefan Struve. It feels like on first kind of like looking at it, you're like, that's just a mismatch. They're just two different shapes.
Yeah.
For one thing.
Talk about a mesomorph.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But it's I watched I love Tuivasa, and you being in Australia, being in Melbourne, you've got to root for him, and I make sure I tune into all his fights. But I remember after the last fight, I think I watched it with you, Grant, against Sergey Spivak. I was really disappointed in him because I didn't feel like he was taking MMA seriously enough. I felt like he was just getting in there and he just wanted to scrap. He had literally no answer to Spivak's wrestling, to his grappling, to his takedowns. Yeah. Basically, if he's in there with someone who didn't want to just stand in the middle and scrap and throw punches, he had no answer. He's an amazing fighter. He's a tough guy, but I think he'll freely admit himself that he's not a well-rounded MMA fighter. Now, so I was interested to see how he was going to stand up against Struve. You know, he's a good kickboxer. He's got lots of wins by decision. He's a dangerous guy. Now, in the build-up to the fight, I'd seen that what I didn't know was that Tuivasa was actually been over at AKA training with Cormier, training with Cain Velasquez, and that screams to me of someone who's had to sit down with himself and decided to take this a bit more seriously. When you see him doing his fighter interviews in the lead up to this, he looks in much better shape. He's a lot more trim. So I'm guessing he's a bit fitter. You know, he's going to have a gas tank on him. Now, I'm high on him. It's easy for me to get back aboard the Tuivasa train, and I will be. I'll definitely be screaming for Tuivasa to get the win here. But what type of a threat, Adam, does Struve hold for him?
He's rangy. That, like, obviously, that's the main thing that comes to mind. He's rangy, and Tuivasa has shown a somewhat, honestly, monotone type of game. It's kind of one-dimensional at times. Like you said, different training camp. You know, hopefully we see some improvements here. Yeah. I think if he can close the distance on Struve, and Struve doesn't keep him at bay, I honestly see him being able to take Struve out. Struve is one of those fighters for me that I see his name on the card and I'm just like, how's he still around?
Yeah.
And when I start to get that feeling, I'm just like, I think he's too far gone. He's not particularly old, but when you've had as many fights as that man has had, he must have had 30 plus fights. He must have. And when you've had that many fights, things just start to slow. You're not quite as sharp. I don't know. I just don't see him being able to get past Tuivasa. I think he's too good.
I agree. I think being able to close the distance on Struve, obviously with the size of him and his length, is going to be key for Tuivasa. Grant, how do you see this one playing out? Are you as high on Tuivasa as me? Are you jumping back into the train, or do you think this again he's gonna come unstuck here against a kind of a wily veteran, you'd say, in that division?
No, I agree with both of you in what you're saying, but I'm not as high on Tuivasa as you are. Like, it just does me head in. He's like you said, I like if he does the AKA move and he's more serious, then great. But he's still acting as if he's like, you know, he'll punch on in the street, and it's like, mate, it's your job now. Like, stop the drinking, stop, like, put your head down, type of thing. And that's why I've kind of gone off him a little bit. But I agree with Struve. I've never been impressed with Struve either. In his last probably, I don't know, 10 fights, I don't know. So
didn't he lose to Ben Rothwell last?
Yeah, Ben Rothwell. Yeah, and Ben Rothwell looked terrible.
Terrible
last week,
awful
2 weeks ago. But I think for this one, given he is 7 foot, so let's not forget. I think it'll be hard. I think it'll be very hard for Tuivasa to sort of punch up and kind of get him. And I think Struve, for me, has that experience. And everyone, us three right here, you can see the danger of Tuivasa. So I think he will use that range. I think he will be far away. And I honestly think Tuivasa might not even get near him. And if he does, the interesting thing is Struve has 18 submission victories.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that is somewhere where Tuivasa wouldn't want to go.
Oh, no way.
So as soon as the alarm bells are there, if Tuivasa maybe catches him 1 or 2 times, Struve might try and, catch it, whether it's like a guillotine or something, or try and do something. So I'm going to lean towards Struve on this one, but I've got a feeling it might be a pretty boring fight. It might be the toilet break. I've got a feeling that Tuivasa we'll all want to see what Tuivasa will try and do, but I don't think he'll get there. And I think Struve will just keep his distance, and it'd be a very boring stand-up fight, I would say.
Yeah. I can definitely foresee that, like for sure. That seems like something you could see. And Struve, anyone with legs that size, I don't want to be on the ground anywhere near them, because they're just going to triangle you from somewhere. You're going to get caught in a sub. Like, there's a reason he has so many submissions. So if I was Tuivasa and I did rock him, I did catch him, I wouldn't go anywhere near him. I'd be like, get back up, let's go. I wouldn't be wanting to get on the ground with that guy.
Yeah.
It feels to me like Tuivasa's got that star quality. He's super popular. So it's in the UFC's interest for him to be doing well, but that's on Tuivasa, isn't it? And I think it feels to me like Struve has been served up to him here as a bit of a test, and being like, right, we can get you back on track here with a win against someone who's not that dangerous. But I think you're right. It could well be a boring fight that Tuivasa's got to grind out, get in and out, pick his punches, but try not to engage. I think we'll know pretty early if he's going to be able to do that. Yeah. And I think if he's not able to do that, I don't know what his plan B is going to be. Yeah. And I think we'll know pretty soon, within the first 2 minutes of the first round, whether Tuivasa's going to have any luck here or not. So I won't be treating it as a toilet break. I'm watching it. But...
I'll be watching, but
Matt's well into it. It's the best fight on the card for Matt.
So that one headlines and prelims. Interesting fight. Have I missed anything on the prelims, or has anyone else had anything else that kind of jumped out to them?
I mean, Cowboys. Alex Oliveira's in there. He's similar to Cowboy Cerrone. He's another cowboy that is always down to fight anyone. Always puts on a good performance, in my opinion. I think 2-fight streak. I think the majority is won by KO. The guy he's fighting, I think, loves a KO as well, and he's making his debut. It's kind of maybe a short notice thing. So Sam
Alvey's on the undercard too, I think.
Smiling right? Sam as well, yeah.
He's been around for a while too.
He's another one. Yeah, he's another one where it's is it getting fed to someone, or is it
right?
We saw him get sparked, didn't we, in Melbourne? He got Jimmy Crew. Oh, not Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy Crew.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was Jimmy Crew.
Yeah, it was.
Battered him. He wasn't smiling anymore, I'll tell you that.
Sad Sam.
Browning silently. Yeah. Speaking off the main card, I don't want to dwell on this one too long, because we've talked about it like 3 times, and every time we talk about it, it drops off. But obviously, Ankalaev and Gabba. We've done this analysis to death, because it never happens. I think all we know about it, the first fight, he played possum. They called it off. Since then, I think they both had COVID. They've tried to make it twice, and it's fallen off. The genuine kind of rhetoric on this one is that Ankalaev is the more dangerous fighter, is a bit of a threat in that division. I don't know, Adam, have you got anything to add about that? Anything you think about that fight? Because I know me and Grant have done it to death.
Yeah. I agree with you. Ankalaev's definitely the most dangerous. Anyone from Dagestan is terrifying, and that's all. If I see that on your CV, you won for me. So he's a winner.
Exactly.
Yeah. We won't dwell on that one too much then.
And if you're putting on a multi or anything like that, if it's close, always lean towards Dagestani. Go Dagestani probably prevails. Maybe.
Yeah. Moving on to that card. There's 2 names I wasn't really familiar with. This Jacob Malkoun and Philip Hawes. Malkoun, I believe, is Whittaker's teammate, making his debut. So I've got literally nothing to add on him. Yeah. But he's Whittaker's teammate. He's obviously done him a favor and got him his debut on the card here. So that'll be interesting. Anyone who's fighting out of a gym that there's champions in, he's going to be a dangerous guy. Philip Hawes, from what I can see, has come through recently in the Contender Series. So obviously someone that Dana likes, and he's going to be dangerous, and someone Dana's going to build a little bit. Yeah. Have you seen much about these guys? Anyone?
No, apart from the Contender Series, but nothing really of note, to be honest. As I say, it's an interesting that they've picked this guy. If Whittaker's teammate is making his debut, who do they see as the biggest star here? Do they see the guy that goes, right, roll over Whittaker's teammate, or do they think, no, this guy's the this guy's the real deal, so we'll feed him to this kid. So it'd be interesting to see. Yeah,
especially interesting to me how this has made its way fairly high up in the main card. It's confusion when you have Casey Kenny, Nathaniel Wood, and you have Stefan Struve on the undercard.
Great point.
I'm kind of confused how this has ended up there, because I don't really know any of these guys. I don't really know anything about them, so it's really interesting. I don't know what Whitaker's done there, but he's pulled some strings, that fella. I don't know how he got his teammate up there, but he owes him a couple pints, that's for sure.
You've got to give it to the UFC matchmakers. You know, they don't tend to make these decisions lightly. I think they'll have seen something in this, I'm assuming, to put it so far up the card. So although we don't know much about it, I would say this is one probably to watch, because there's a reason they put them so high at this card. I would think.
Right.
Maybe we'll wait for Dana's "If You Know Now You Know" video on Instagram. Maybe he might mention it.
I love those.
Yeah, who knows?
Next fight on the card: Volkov and Harris. I know, Grant, you had you were quite interested in this fight, weren't you? How do you see this one playing out?
I just think it's a carbon copy of what we'll see with Struve and Tuivasa. I think Volkov, like Struve, is the better mixed martial artist in the fight, but Walt Harris always has that danger. You know, obviously Harris sort of, they're not being nice to Walt Harris, are they? The UFC, they threw him in against Overeem, and then they say, right, okay, so you lost that one, so now you've got Volkov to deal with. So my prediction for this one is I'm gonna go against the mixed martial artist, and I will say Walt Harris gets back in the win column. And the only reason I say that is because I don't think I've ever forgiven Volkov for costing me my bet in the Volkov-Derek Lewis when he was comfortably winning the fight, and he went for him in the last round, and then Derek Lewis sparked him with not too long remaining. So, and I think it's going to be a similar thing where Volkov, I could see being up on the scorecards, kind of getting in and out, using his technical ability from Walt, and Walt's trying to figure him out and maybe tire a little bit. He's probably 2 up on the scorecards. He gets into the third, towards the late to round 3, and Harris catches him with something, and it's a TKO, and Harris gets the win. So, Adam, how do you see it?
Yeah, I agree. I think Harris is just too dangerous. Like he's not the best mixed martial artist, but he's got a whop in hand. And in a fight where you've got 2 fighters that aren't the most technically skilled, all that we can say about this fight is someone's going to land. I don't see this going the distance. I really don't see it going the distance. I don't think Walt Harris has had a fight that's gone the distance in probably like 5 years. In like a long time, he never really goes the distance. So I'm gonna say that Walt Harris gets a 2nd or 3rd round stoppage in this one.
Yeah. Anything to add
in this one? I think he comes into this with the story. I'm sure everyone's familiar with kind of what's happened to him over the last year or so, and it was a bit of a shame that what happened with the Overeem fight, because he was doing pretty well, wasn't he, until he got caught in that bad position towards the end. Well, he's coming off big knockouts. He's knocked out Olenek, knocked out Spivak, both dangerous guys in this division. So, I think Walt Harris with this one, I think it's going to mean more to him. And again, you look into things just in the build-up of the fight. Another one, similar to what I said about Tuivasa, who looks trim. He looks like he's prepared himself to potentially go the distance in this one.
Yeah, and he's probably in a better headspace as well. I mean, don't forget, the fight coming off all the personal issues, obviously with his daughter, etc. It's like, and don't get me wrong, you can't get over something like that, but I can guarantee that the Walt Harris on Fight Island and walking around is a lot more at peace and a lot, and kind of a lot more focused than he was against Overeem, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that too.
Yeah, it's all part of the healing process for him, isn't it? But I think he's a dangerous guy, and if he can challenge that, he can channel that energy and that focus into something. It might be a bad night for Volkov.
Adam, do you know anything with obviously we mentioned earlier Tucson fighters, Lauren Murphy's on the card. Is there much talk of her around Arizona, or is anything you can add maybe with her fight, or?
Not that I'm aware of, to be honest. She's another one that's from MMA Lab as well, I believe. So there's so many coming up from that gym, and anyone that kind of now is making it out of Tucson is kind of going up to Phoenix to go to the MMA Lab as well. But no, I don't know too much about her. I mean, I've saw her fight. I'm impressed with her, but I don't really have any inside knowledge there. What are your thoughts on that fight?
I know. I think it's. I think the lady she's fighting is making her debut, because I think the original fight we had
they
should have
fell
been.
through.
Yeah, it was Calvillo, which I do.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Cynthia Calvillo. So again, like we've been saying, she's probably getting fed to the wolves. Murphy's won her last 3. Experience will prevail, and it'll probably be, I would say, a decision victory for Lauren Murphy. I would say. Matt, anything,
I would say
anything
that, yeah.
to add there?
Nothing to add. You're probably right. I think experience will show in this one.
Yeah.
Although she's been preparing for a different opponent, so if you're playing devil's advocate, it'll be interesting to see what this opponent who's coming in with making a debut. She'll probably be a little bit underprepared for her. Whereas if you're coming in making your debut, you've almost got nothing to lose there. She'll be able to let it go and and just fight her own fight. So it'll be interesting, I think. But yeah, you're probably right. Experience prevails in this one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads us to the co-main, which I'm really excited about. Again, you think I'm a big fan of Tuivasa. I bloody love Robert Whittaker. So
I think we all do.
Yeah,
he's class.
Big fan of him. And it's a bit, there's a lot on the line in this fight. Firstly, for Jared Cannonier, obviously, he's all but been told he's got the next shot at Izzy if he can get through this fight. And I think Dana is high on chucking Robert Whittaker back in there if he's able to come past Cannonier. Don't know how much Adesanya is keen on that one, but I think Dana's keen on building a big Australian card again around it. The fight itself, it's a mismatch of styles, really, isn't it? It's a power puncher in Cannonier who's come down through the weights. Now he's a middleweight with heavyweight punching power. Whereas Robert Whittaker is going to be that kind of fast, explosive, elusive, can grapple. But if Cannonier can land, he's going to cause real damage. I guess, Adam, I'll come to you first on this one. How do you think that Whittaker will be able to hold up against them power punches?
I don't think he'll get hit. I don't think he'll get hit with them too much. I really, really think he'll be too elusive. He is, in my opinion, like I looked at the odds for this fight, and the bookies have it as like a pick 'em. Like they don't really have a favorite in this fight. Right. I think Whittaker is a far better martial artist. I really, really do. I think he's phenomenal. Watching him against Darren Till, and that was a good Darren Till that we saw there. Maybe he wasn't throwing quite as much as we would have liked, but that was a Darren Till as good as we've ever seen him. And Whittaker was just able to just find his level and just go above it. And I think he'll be able to do the same. I think his fight IQ is on a different level. I think he's just too good of a martial artist. And I think if he needs to, he can always revert to his grappling. If he finds that he's getting, he's getting clocked there or he's getting tagged and he doesn't feel comfortable, we know he's a great grappler. He's just all rounded. He's just a well-rounded fighter. I just think he's got a better skill set than Cannonier. Although I do like Cannonier, and there's no doubt that he's dangerous. I just see Whittaker being able to slip those punches and catch him on the counter. Yeah,
and I think that the interesting element to this fight as well for Whittaker is that it's a 3-round fight, which he hasn't had a 3-round fight for probably about 4 years.
Yeah.
And do you think that plays into Whittaker's hands as well? Do you think he'll be able to, be a bit more explosive, be a bit more creative within the 3 rounds because he knows he hasn't got to prolong this out for 25 minutes?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and as I say, like Adam was saying, the being a better mixed martial artist, that experience as well has been the highest pressure fights. This is a big fight for him because, like you say, get back into the picture. And I think he will manage to, if he was putting the output that he was with Darren Till and going that little bit further, what can he do, like you're saying, in just 3 rounds? I agree with Adam in terms of, Cannonier probably might not touch him. The only danger, and I'm more nervous than excited, is Whittaker's chin, because quite often we've seen, he's took a couple of big blows in fights and you go, bloody hell, Cannonier might land something on there. But what I will go back to is, yes, Cannonier is a scary dude. Everybody knows that. He's a very scary man. But you tell me another man on this planet that can be locked in a cage for 50 minutes with Yoel Romero and live to tell the tale. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? He's arguably been in there with the scariest. So if you can do 50 minutes with Yoel, I think you can get past Cannonier. So I'm praying. We're all praying he gets the win. Matt, are you nervous?
I I'm a little bit nervous for him for that very reason that we know that if Cannonier lands, he's very dangerous. The thing that I agree. I think the elusiveness is going to play a big part, and the fact that he'll have that extra pace on him for the 3 rounds. I think he's a better martial artist, and like Adam said, I don't think he'll get hit very much. And if he does start to feel the pressure, he can go to his grappling.
Yeah.
I think my big question, I guess, to you guys to finish off on this one is, if Whittaker gets the win, does he get the next shot at Adesanya? Because I think the way that you can sell it here is that his mindset wasn't right going into that first Adesanya fight. If we can, if he's in a better place now, which we think he is, he was really impressive against Till. If he comes through Cannonier, I don't think there's any argument for me that he gets that next shot.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's somewhat unfair to be like, if Cannonier wins, he gets the shot, but Whittaker, if you win, you're not getting the shot. I think that he's fully entitled to that shot. I really, really do. I mean, and it all comes down to the night. If he goes out there and stops him, KOs him, or just makes him look like he's on a completely different level, then he gets it more. If it's a split decision win and it's kind of a boring fight, then maybe it's time to reassess. But
look at Ortega last week. The performance that Ortega did, you would say that got him the title shot, didn't it? You would say, oh, well, does it go max rematch, or is there something there? Straight away, you see that performance and go, yeah, you're in. You're in against Volkanovski. Yeah. And so I would say yes to your question, Matt. And the reason why is I think they will do this in New Zealand in a big stadium because of the COVID cases. Yeah. People in New Zealand are, it's a lot less risk. So you can have a crowd. It can be Izzy versus Adesanya in New Zealand. And I'm going to say the co-main will be Nate Diaz versus Dan Hooker in New Zealand.
What a fight.
Oh, what a card.
That is a card.
Yeah.
Plus all Izzy's mates.
All his crew.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. I don't think Izzy will be as stoked about it, but I think they'll be able to build a big show around it. Money talks there. I think it makes a lot of sense for Robert Whittaker as well to get that shot if he can come through. The more impressive the performance, the more likely it is that he gets that shot, I think.
100%.
Yeah. And then that leads us, I guess, on to the main event, which is, the fight that it's the biggest fight of the year. It's the one that we've been building up to for a long time. And I'm absolutely stoked by it. I cannot wait. Khabib 28-0, absolute dominant, arguably the most dominant champion that the UFC's got now. He's taken on Justin Gaethje, who a lot of people now will see as the person who's got the biggest threat to Khabib's legacy, I suppose. I think the first question is, with this fight, we know what they're both going to do. There's no hidden game plans. Neither of them has been coy about what they're going to do. We've seen it 28 times. Khabib comes in, he's going to take you down. He's going to want to punish you on the floor. Ideally, he'll put you against the fence, wrap your legs up. Justin Gaethje wants to keep this on the feet. He wants to stand and trade. And we know that in his last couple of fights, he's taken a more mature approach, I suppose. He's not been putting himself in harm's way. The big question is, and I guess I'll come to Adam first on this one. First question, how effectively can Gaethje stop those takedowns?
Well, I mean, we know Gaethje is an unbelievable wrestler. Yeah. We know he is. But we know that Khabib's teammates are some of the best wrestlers in the world. You've got DC, who he wrestles day in, day out. Yeah. And DC says that he manhandles him. He's able to take him down at will. He's able to hold him down. He's able to beat DC up. Yeah. And DC is an Olympic medalist, that he's a different level. I've never seen someone grapple that effectively. The way he is able to pinch those opponents' knees together every time he gets that takedown and just smother them. And every time they post up, he grabs this arm and takes it away and does that arm ride. It's so effective. It's so effective and it's so scary. He is literally a bear. And I was writing Gaethje off against Tony Ferguson and I was completely wrong there, as you will remember. So I can't write him off again. I can't completely write him off, but he's going to have to be absolutely perfect to stand a chance against Khabib. Yeah. He is a 3.5 to 1 underdog. He's the biggest underdog on the card in a main event. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen the main event have the biggest underdog, or a championship fight have the biggest underdog. Like, clearly not many people are giving him a chance. And I don't know if I am either. Khabib's so effective. And if there's one area in which his grapplers fall down, these people that are just amazing grapplers, very occasionally, or actually very often, they get it into their head that they're going to be strikers today randomly. And they go in there and they try and strike and they forget about their grappling. Khabib doesn't do that ever. He goes in there and he'll throw a few punches. And as soon as there's an opportunity, he hits that takedown. He's one where I just don't see him diverting from that game plan. I see him going in there and executing it every single time and just and getting that dominant win. And I do think he'll get the finish too.
Right. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're exactly right. And we've said this before about people like Mackenzie Dern, haven't we? Where we see them trying to do something else. And it's like, we know what you're really good at. Please just stick to the answer that doesn't work. And I think Khabib is one of the rare examples that has done that. Now, I think, Grant, my question for you is, if play devil's advocate, that Justin Gaethje is able to stifle these takedowns. He's not so much stopping the takedown, but he's able to get straight back up. Khabib isn't able to control him. He's able to roll out of these positions and keep going. Has Khabib got a plan B, or does he just keep hitting that takedown every time and hope to grind it out and eventually, Gaethje's going to tire? What's the alternative for Khabib?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. It's not the story isn't, can he be taken down? The real thing is he needs to get back up regardless, because us watching Khabib all through his, we're probably going to say Gaethje will probably, be taken down. But if he gets back up, that is what many people don't do. And we've seen it time and time again. Conor was just sitting there. People just kind of concede. They sit against the fence. So the plan B, Khabib doesn't need one, in my opinion. I don't think he has a plan B, and I don't think it necessarily needs one. It's just basically he's got the heaviest head in the UFC. He keeps his head there, like sat on you, and it'll just pound away. So I think, and we saw a couple of exchanges. I know it wasn't a fully, focused Conor, but we saw exchanges where Khabib was getting better at the stand-up with Conor.
Oh, 100%.
So
he rocked Conor with that overhand right.
He did.
So right on the button.
Exactly. So I've got a feeling that every round will be Khabib takes him down and Gaethje will get back up, but it's still going to take him a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, and he'll jump back up. And then all Khabib has to do is just make sure he's got the good hands for the next sort of minute and just ride out the round. But Khabib wins every single round by just doing Khabib things. And I think there's very few people on this planet that are unique like Khabib. And I think, with his father passing, the whole story has been this 30-0. This has been the big thing, 30-0, get to 30-0. And I think he's the type of person that all he ever does is train, fight, look after his family. And whether he's got $10 in his pocket or whether he's got $10 million in his pocket, it doesn't matter to Khabib. And he wants to get to that 30-0 for his father's legacy, for everything, what he's been working his life towards. And I don't think anyone can deter him from that. And it sets up a retirement fight versus George St. Pierre. So, Matt, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, mate, but how can Justin Gaethje inflict damage in this fight?
That's the big question. I think there's, for me, there's an argument that Gaethje needs to just get on his bike straight away. He almost needs to go full Masvidal and storm across the octagon and just try, I don't know, throw a knee, throw a massive right hook. I don't know what he needs to do, but I think what's going to be key for Gaethje, and it's something that, that Khabib hasn't really been tested with yet, is it'd be great for him to cut Khabib early. Make him see his own blood, put him under a bit of pressure. And that was always spoken about in the build-up to the Tony Ferguson fights, is that, he would be able to possibly cut Khabib when he's on the bottom, use his elbows and stuff. I think there'll be a big onus on Gaethje to do the same. For him, it's just about inflicting damage to see if he can slow Khabib down, and more importantly, to see if he can put him off, shooting for those takedowns every 2 seconds. If he knows that there's a bit of danger there, it's gonna possibly have a negative effect on Khabib, the way Khabib can get in, the way that his confidence of being able to rush in and go for the double leg. that's probably the key. And for Gaethje, like I said before, it's about he can't stop. He can't ever be in a position where he's controlled on the floor. I think we know he's going to get taken down. There's no way he's going to be able to stop that takedown for 25 minutes. It's just, like we said before, if he can get back up. And for me, the secret to that, or the key to that, is you can't get stuck in a position on the floor where Khabib can tangle those legs up, where he can start to rain that pressure down on you.
Especially not defense.
Well, exactly, yeah. If he's going to get taken down, he wants to stay in the middle. He wants to stay in a position where he can scramble out of it, get back up, and inflict some damage. Am I on the right track there, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. I imagine just being the person in charge of creating a game plan against Khabib. Like, how do you do that? What do you tell them to do? It's like, how do you overcome? You know exactly what he's going to do. It's such a unique situation. You know exactly what he is going to do, and you still can't stop it. Nobody has come close to stopping it. That's when you know you are the best at what you do. So we can talk about game plans all you want, and I think that they probably have. And at the end of the day, it's just whether is it even going to have been worth the time and effort almost. It's like, is he just going to go in and impose his will? It's like, for me, I remember the feeling I used to get when I watched like Chuck Liddell or Randy Couture back in the day. And I used to get so excited for those fights and feel like it was something special. Like you was seeing something amazing. Or Anderson Silva in his prime, GSP in his prime. Yeah. And I get that same feeling about very few fighters now, but I get it about Khabib. Like when he steps into the octagon, I'm like, geez, it's the same feeling you get with Conor. There's those few fighters, same feeling you get with DC. Those couple of fighters that are around now that you're just like, oh, they're so entertaining. They're so unique. There's something about them. Khabib has that. I think you're right. I think Gaethje has to go out and he's got to try and tag him early. And the longer this fight goes on, the more in favor it is for Khabib, I think. I do not see Gaethje winning decision. That's like the last thing I can foresee happening. I can't see him winning this fight by decision. Yeah. If he's winning, it's going to be by tagging Khabib and getting a shock upset knockout. I really don't see him being able to outwork him for 5 rounds.
I love Gaethje's confidence as well throughout the embeddeds, and you see like the interviews and like he's in that mindset that he's in. And the most interesting thing is he obviously is backing his ability, because he's in his negotiation to get the fight. He said, "My one request is my mum and dad to be ringside." I find that's unbelievable, because he obviously thinks they need to be there for the crowning moment when I take the glory.
Yeah, and he's giving away his like interim belt. He's like, I don't want this. Like, what's this mean to me? It's pointless. So I love it. I really like him. Like, I know there's part of me, like, I love Khabib, like just for the grappling aspect. I do want him to win, but there's a part of me that would. Yeah. I'd be happy to see Gaethje go out there and pull off a shot upset. Like that would just be mind blowing. Exactly. I don't foresee it happening, but it couldn't happen to a better guy. I like him. He's a good fella.
So. Following that, I've got a question for both of you, and Adam, you can answer this one first, is if Justin does it and he wins and beats Khabib, do the UFC make Conor McGregor jump the queue and have Conor McGregor versus Gaethje early next year, and Poirier just becomes insignificant now, and that fight doesn't happen?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, because that's scheduled for like January 23rd or something like that, right? Yeah. So that could be an option. And then there's Chandler just kind of waiting in the wings, just sitting around. Like he's just there on the island cutting weight, like being miserable for probably no reason at all. Like where does he stand in all of this? Like it's so interesting to have someone like this just kind of pop up out of nowhere. It's very rare that we get that now. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be so up for that. I'd be so up to see the winner of that come through. And, if it is Conor, I would foresee the same outcome again. But I watched that fight again the other day, and I'm not going to say Conor come close to winning. Yeah. He didn't, but there was a couple of knees on those takedowns that Khabib missed by inches. Yeah. Like he like slit them just, and they hit the shoulder, and like they were close. Like, and Khabib's takedowns in that fight were not technically sound. They really, really weren't. They were diving singles from super far away. Normally you'll get within a distance, you'll level change, and you'll shoot in. Khabib just dives at you from like the middle, from nowhere, and somehow manages to get it. But I don't know. There's something there. If someone can figure out how to land those knees coming in and time them, that there are holes.
Exactly.
They're just very, very small holes.
I'm sure Gaethje's seen that as well. Gaethje will have watched the tape. Trevor Whitman will have watched the tape, and he'll have said, "There's a knee there. If you can throw it, if you can throw that knee, if you can time it perfectly, it's there." Because we know if there's one thing you can guarantee in this fight, it's that Khabib's shooting in. His head's going to be there. You've just got to be able to time that knee, haven't you? Well, yeah. To answer your question, Grant, in terms of jumping the queue, I think it pays dividends, doesn't it, for the UFC to have Conor as the champion. If Khabib does lose, if Gaethje takes the win here, I wouldn't be surprised if they do throw Conor straight in there, because I also think, as high as we are on Gaethje and everything that he's done, I think Conor beats Gaethje, and I think he beats him not easily, but I think he would piece Gaethje up. I think personally, I don't.
I do as well.
It's funny, and you get the triangles, and it's all about the styles, isn't it? You think you could, Khabib can fight Conor 10 times and he probably wins 9 of them. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's interesting. Gaethje's got a good chance of beating Gaethje's got a good chance of beating Khabib, but then I think Conor beats Gaethje. It's really
it's so interesting.
The UFC like to have dominant champions, but they also like to see that belt move as well. A bit like it is at light heavyweight now, where the belt's on the move suddenly because John Jones is gone. It might not be a bad thing for them, for Gaethje to get this belt, and then you start to see a bit more of a conveyor belt of a bit changing hands a few times.
So where does Chandler fit in? Is it just then Chandler Poirier, or? But Adam, I'll come to you. Where does Chandler fit in this division? I mean, even if you look at the rankings, whereabouts is he? The match.
Does Dan Hooker have a fight lined up right now? He doesn't, right?
So he has.
Yeah, so Diaz has been calling him out on social. It's nothing confirmed, but Diaz is trying to call him out. But
so I would love to see it. It depends which fight happens first, and I'm guessing McGregor and Poirier would. And I would love to see him take on the winner of that fight. To be honest, it's a tricky situation with Chandler. It's like, very rare do we have people come from a cross organization, and like we don't see it enough, so we can't really gauge his talent. Like what his last fight was it Benson Henderson maybe, or the fight before last was Benson Henderson. Like Benson Henderson isn't the UFC level of talent anymore. Like he's a good fighter, but like he isn't Dan Hooker level, he isn't Poirier level, he isn't Conor level, he isn't there. So it's really, really hard to say if Chandler's going to be as good as everybody thinks he is. Yeah. It's just super, super hard. You can look at him in Bellator and think he's amazing, but he comes over to the UFC and he's not that good.
It's the big leagues.
It's a similar situation with Ronda Rousey, right? When she was the most dominant champion in UFC history. But it's because women's MMA was new and there wasn't too many top contenders. And then as soon as it took off and there was really tough women from all over the world, she got found out pretty quick. So it will be interesting. I'm not writing him off. I think he's a fantastic fighter, but I think it's very tough to say where he fits in. I think it's incredibly hard to really gauge his skill set until you see him against top competition.
Yeah. Matt, where does he fit in, do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's obviously an interesting fight there with Tony Ferguson, potentially. They're the two that are matched up. One thing with Chandler is his personality is championship level. I don't know about his fighting skills yet, but his personality and his mindset, the UFC want him in and around that top 5 because he was Bellator's poster boy. He's been a champion. He knows what it means to deal with the media, to take last minute fights, to be a standby for a main event. He'll do all of those things for the UFC. The challenge for him is he's got to back it up in the octagon first. He's got to fight someone, and he's got to be impressive if he wants to be in and around that kind of championship level fights. But there's fights there for him. Like we've said, I think the Tony Ferguson one is already there, and that one seems to make a lot of sense. If for whatever reason one of the Poirier or McGregor drops off, there's a fight there as well. I don't think he'd fight McGregor straight away. I think it's too big of a name. I think there's a risk reward thing there for that fight. But him and McGregor down the line, if Chandler can put a few wins together, or even one win together, the selling power, the marketing power of that fight, because Michael Chandler speaks really well. He would go toe-to-toe with McGregor, and it'd be a really competitive fight as well. I'm sure it would. but he's got to be able to back this personality up in the octagon. So there's fights there for him. I imagine it'll be Tony Ferguson who will fight first, just because he seems like the odd one out now. Yeah, it really would be, and he seems like that's the one that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree more, and I don't know what you think about it, Grant, but yeah, I Ferguson is kind of like, his name has somewhat disappeared after that dismantling that he took from Gaethje. So it's crazy that he was like, he was going to be the one to beat Khabib. He was going to take Khabib out. He was going to be the guy to do it all. And then Gaethje just shocked everyone and just absolutely picked him apart. And I do feel like that could be a great fight for Ferguson. It could be. And whoever wins that fight is going to be back in the stardom. You know, they're going to be back in the ranks, and they're going to be, you know, taking on the winner of McGregor-Poirier if they don't get the title shot for some reason. So this is an interesting division. It's the most interesting division right now, I think, in the UFC. There's so many potential matchups, especially with Chandler coming in now, that I can't wait for this one to almost be over so we can see what's coming next. I know. It's so exciting. I know. And
I kind of really want to see, and I could completely agree with both of you, Chandler and a Ferguson, Chandler and a Hooker, even a Paul Felder, maybe, even, you know, on the sidelines there. I know he's kind of 1 foot out the commentary side of it, but he's not done. But I actually really want to see Ferguson and Poirier, because I think it's not intended to happen. But I kind of feel that there's a bit of bad blood now, because Ferguson was backing him up to get paid and say, I'm not fighting if he's not fighting, and pay him his worth and pay him his money. And then suddenly Poirier's kind of gone behind his back, and McGregor's put his hand up, and Poirier goes, oh yeah, I'll have a bit of that. And now Ferguson doesn't have a fight, you know? So I kind of feel
that's crazy. It's like that meme where there's like the guy and the girl walking together, and they turn around and look at it's exactly that. Poirier's like, ooh, McGregor. Like, he's just gone straight for it.
It is.
Sure. Yeah. So many interesting fights. I can't wait for this one in particular. I just see Khabib's, like, there's a couple of things that Khabib does that they're almost unstoppable. Like if he can get the takedown, which he can, he'll be able to get it.
Yeah.
His ability to hold people down is second to none. Like, he uses that leg mount first of all. So as soon as he gets that takedown, pinches those legs together, takes away that, like, as soon as your knees are pinched together, there's nothing you can do.
Back it up.
Yeah, that's called it. Yeah, it's a leg mount. So as soon as he gets that, that's step one. And then from there, to stand up, every single stand up starts with a base. You put your hand out, you put your knee there.
Yeah.
He is the most efficient grappler at taking away that base. He sees it from everywhere. If it's the hand, he's straight on the wrist, right? He pulls it in. He does that gift wrap where he comes around the head and like wraps it with the other hand. And then even when they start posting up to their knees, he grapevines inside and takes that base away too. He's like an octopus. He just somehow manages to take away every single way that you could get up. It's gone with Khabib. So if he doesn't get caught on one of those takedowns, if he can avoid those knees, he can avoid those uppercuts. I think it's Khabib's fight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So good to have the insight there of those grappling positions. I think, like we said before, the key for Gaethje, isn't it? It's don't get stuck on the floor. And I think Gaethje's even said it himself. He's openly saying, I can't get called there because I can't get up, because nobody's got up, nobody can get up. Khabib's too good at it. So I guess to round out the chat about the card, I think is fair for us all to make a little prediction on this one, because it is such an interesting fight. Grant, I'll come to you first. How do you see this fight playing out? Just give me a quick prediction.
Yeah, Khabib via decision, doing Khabib things.
Smish.
Smashing brother.
What do you think?
I'm going Khabib round 3, ground and pound, smash.
Right. And I'm gonna. It sounds like the boring call now, but I'm going to agree with Grant. I think this goes the distance. It goes 5 rounds. I think that Justin Gaethje is tough enough to stay in the fight. He's got no quit in him, but I think he'll lose a decision. I think he'll be controlled for a long period of the fight, and he'll lose the decision there.
Go down on his sword.
I think so.
I can't wait for this, man.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I hope we're all horribly wrong. I hope we're all wrong and Khabib gets knocked out. It'd just be amazing. But I wouldn't be putting my money on it, if I'm honest.
Imagine Khabib knocks him out. That's not out of the question either. Everyone's so scared of the takedown with Khabib that they leave their hands down. He does that knee tap, like he taps the knee, looking like you're going for a takedown. Everyone drops their hand, and he's there with that overhand right.
The uppercut.
You know what? we're going backwards a bit, but you know what Gaethje's got to watch as well? He was susceptible to that uppercut from Tony Ferguson. And that, the same thing, Khabib can do the same thing. Yeah. He fakes the takedown, fakes that, and then throws an uppercut straight up the middle. You know, Gaethje's susceptible to that as well. It's mad. Anything can happen.
Exactly.
It's so good. It's so good.
So in summary, it's going to be Gaethje by submission.
I can't wait for it, guys. Yeah. And yeah, Khabib even looking like Darth Vader right now with that mask that he's wearing too.
I know.
The only thing that can make him more scary, Darth Vader impersonations.
Yeah, you're right.
Unbelievable.
Before we finish up today, it was news this morning that I just wanted to touch on, and while Adam was here, I wanted to get your opinion as well. Leon Edwards, I don't know if you've seen today already, Adam, that they've removed him from the welterweight rankings.
I saw that.
Why is Leon Edwards just getting shafted at every turn? What has he got?
I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with this fella. Like, he's just, I don't know. He's got some bad luck going on. I read it's because they couldn't come to terms with a contract, right? Like I think that he was asking for too much money for what they were willing to pay for him or whatever. But yeah, that's a wild one because he's a good fighter, man. I don't really know what's going on there. That's a crazy move. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like the UFC sometimes gets a little big for its boots with things like that, but we'll see where that goes.
I think they're struggling to get him a fight. I don't think anybody wants to fight him because he's a massive risk to anyone because he isn't a big name. He doesn't draw big numbers, but he's very, very dangerous. And I don't think anybody wants to fight him. And unfortunately, I think he's going to get shafted and he's going to get given hands at. He's going to get given. That's what they make him do. And it's awful. Grant, I was like, what do you think? Who should he be fighting?
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I texted you straight away this morning. And why on earth would he pick Khamzat Chimaev? The guy is close to a title shot and close. He's like 1 or 2 fights, if not a title shot. And Chimaev's like, he's not even ranked probably. So it's like, why would I take the fight? It's like, it's literally the equivalent of an up-and-coming heavyweight like Tom Aspinall and Francis Ngannou agreeing to fight him. And it's like, no, but Ngannou, you've probably got the next shot. And he's like, yeah, but I'll go for this.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
It's unbelievable to think that you would, isn't it?
It's a bit rich. It's a bit rich, Dana, saying inactivity when Conor McGregor's retired twice and got into boxing and stayed in the rankings. And Brian Ortega, yes, last week aside, hadn't fought for 2 years and was still second in the rankings. So, mate, inactivity. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Leon Edwards hasn't. I mean, he hasn't fought in a while, but he also hasn't lost since. When was his last loss? It was like
Usman. About 8 in a row. It's about 8 in a row.
Yeah, I think Usman would have been his last loss.
Yeah, I really think Usman would have been his last loss, and that's insane.
That was a close decision. It wasn't. It wasn't a. He didn't get beat by much, really.
I don't think so. No, but I guess he's. I don't know. Some weird things going on there, but I wouldn't want to fight Khamzat if I was him.
Again, it's a risk-reward thing. It's such a high risk. It's for someone in Leon Edwards' position. It's a massive risk. Yes, you should be beating.
It's a massive risk. Yeah, it's a massive risk. And at the same time, if you playing devil's advocate and you look at it from another perspective, like Khamzat has just got this fucking brand name now, right? Yeah. Where like, if he does beat Khamzat, even though he's unranked, like, or if he is ranked, he's 10, 11, whatever. Yeah. That would be a big win, if he could, like, everyone's seen as unstoppable. Like, DC is calling him his favorite fighter. Like, everyone's loving him. I guess
Dana loves him.
He's trying to play off that a little bit, but it's an interesting.
Doesn't the rankings though, does it? If you're Leon Edwards, no. Ranking, you're not getting a title shot off the back of beating him.
I know.
This is why it's a bit funny.
Exactly. Well, and then if he loses, Leon Edwards is what?
Yeah, it's odd.
Down to 15th or something, is he? Or you know what I mean? It's like, why would I take it? Why would I take that fight?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and, what the outcome is. It'll be interesting to see if Leon Edwards comes out and, addresses it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But time will tell anyway. Right, fellas, it's been epic. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great to get your insight on this awesome card. And
thank you.
I can't wait to watch it on Sunday. It's not great timing for you, is it, Adam? I don't think in America.
Oh, it's great.
It is great timing. I thought it wasn't.
7 a.m. Oh, well, I think, no, it's awesome. I think East Coast, oh no, he's pretty good too. It's pretty bad for you guys, right?
Terrible. It's the worst of all time. Worst of all time.
Yeah.
3 a.m. prelims, 5 a.m.
Quite lucky. I think that on
main card. So you either have to turn it in early on a Saturday night or do an all-nighter.
Go for the all-nighter, boys. Get the beers going. You'll be all right.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks so much, Adam, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. And Grant, thanks as always.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Give us a like, give us a share. Tell your mates if you're interested in the UFC card. I think you'll enjoy this episode. Thanks very much. Take it easy.